Wassalamu alaikum.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد، اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد، أجز عنا نبينا محمد خير ما جزيت نبيا عن أمته، واسق من حوض شربة لا نظمأ بعد أبدا. علم is one of the most valuable thing that Allah has given to people, and that's why Allah said that Noon wal qalam وما يسطرون. And Allah swear by the qalam, the pen, and what people write. And the only thing that Allah asks us to have more, وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا, oh Allah, increase me knowledge. And subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen Adam to have ilm that the malaika don't have it. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا وعلم آدم الأسماء كلها. So knowledge is one of the most important things, and that's why Islam is deen of ilm and knowledge. And subhanallah, ilm al-faraid, which is the science of inheritance, is the first ilm that be taken away from us. Rasul said حتى إن الرجل يقول ثمة راجل عالم هناك, there's someone there in that city. And ilm al-faraid is one of the necessity to us, because everyone needs it, every human being, because everyone will leave this world one day, and whatever I collected in all my life should be divided according to the Sharia. And subhanallah, Rasul said hadith, إن الله لم يدع الميراث لنبي ولا ملك. يعني Allah didn't force a Nabi to describe it or divide it, or even an angel. Allah from 7 heavens, He take care of this matter in details, whether it is 1/3, 1/6, 2/3, half, in details. And that's why our deen is deen hidayah. إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم. This Quran guide us to the best in every aspect of our life. And subhanallah, even Western scholars, when they study Sharia and the Mirath, they find that there is nothing more fair than this division, because it gives those who are related to you. When you need help, it is my relatives. Although now in these nuclear families we have missing that, but it is your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, your uncle. Those are those who are take care of women in need, and that's why Allah give them share in the mirath. تفضل أستاذ لبابة. إن شاء الله we'll read some ayat and then we'll go through them inshallah.
And it's really funny because I actually have non-Muslim clients that will do their inheritance according to Islamic law, right? Parents will receive 1/6, spouses will receive some, and the rest will go to children. Because again, when you explain it to them and you talk to them about, okay, this is what it is, they're like, this makes so much sense. And so a lot of my non-Muslim clients will divide it. They don't know it's Sharia based, but it's like, this is what I advise. And they're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Let's do it that way. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to cover what is an estate, what is the importance of having an Islamic will, what are the Islamic inheritance laws, what does Islam actually say, what does the Quran actually say about what those rules are, who receives what, and why do they receive that. We're going to talk about the importance of having a will under Texas law, and what are the consequences. If I don't have a will, I don't have a trust, I don't have anything, what happens to my assets, what happens to my things? And then we're going to talk about our important asset, our children, right? What happens to our children if, God forbid, something happens to me? And then what are trusts and why do some people use them? And then we'll close out by talking about endowment or awqaf, and how do Muslims use them in Islamic history, and what is our history, what is our legacy, and what do we need to do to uphold it? So when you're looking at estate planning, everyone's like, okay, I'm going to do estate planning. What's an estate? What does that look like? What is that? So an estate is a total of a person's property, entitlements, and obligations. It is everything that you own. It is property, like real property, which is anything that's attached to land, like your house. And then you've got personal property, which is anything that you can move from here to there, right? So cash, jewelry, furniture, artwork, securities, securities, copyrights, patents, trademarks, goodwill, that is all personal property. So what happens to all of those things upon my passing? When you're looking at estate planning, you're looking at 4 primary areas. One is your assets, right? Where do your things go? That's what everyone thinks of when you're looking at estate planning. Where do my things go? That is one big part. But then you also have your family. If I have minor children or children that have special needs, or if I'm supporting older parents, right? What happens to them and how do I make sure that they continue being taken care of even if I'm not here? The third part is my comfort. If, la samahullah, God forbid, I am incapacitated and I can't make decisions for myself, what do I want to happen? Who do I want to make medical decisions for me? What medical decisions do I want them to make? What guidance should I give them? Right? We get cases where the family's torn and they're fighting, let's do this, no, let's do that. And the doctors are like, when you all get a majority, come back and talk to us. And I get these calls and I'm like, call a sheikh. Who's your imam? Who's your scholar? Who do you go to? They're like, we don't have one. I'm like, call my dad. He'll come visit you all, right? But you need to have those relationships so that when you're in that situation, someone can come in and talk to you and talk to your family, because the goal is to keep people together, right? When you're looking at inheritance planning from an Islamic perspective, the goal is to fulfill everyone's rights and to make sure that your family stays together. And so when you're planning and you're intentional about doing it, you're more likely to have that happen. And then the fourth area is your business. If you own a business, how do you make sure that your parents, that your family is able to extract whatever assets are in that business? Or they're able to keep that business operating and keep getting that benefit for them. And so you have to have that written and have that all detailed. There's so many ahadith, so many ayahs in the Quran that talk about inheritance law, right? We have Ramadan that's coming in 3 months, less than 3 months, right? And in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah tells us, Kutiba alaykum as-siyam, Allah has prescribed for you fasting. A few ayahs later, the verse starts with Kutiba alaykum, right? It has been prescribed for you that when death approaches any of you, if they leave something of value, a will should be made in favor of parents and immediate family with fairness. And this is an obligation of those who are mindful of God. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 180. I think the verse is on Siyam, verse 183. Hold it closer. Yes. Is this better? Okay. Alhamdulillah. There are many ahadith, like this is a hadith that my dad talked about earlier, which was, learn the inheritance and teach it, for it is half of knowledge, but it will be forgotten. This is the thing that will be taken. This is the first thing that will be taken away from my nation. And if you look at who knows how to do estate planning right now, or Islamic estate planning, there's a handful of attorneys and even imams who have the knowledge and the wisdom of the context of American society to be able to advise you and your family to do this properly. Go.
الله سيدنا أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. للرجال نصيب مما ترك الوالدان والأقربون وللنساء نصيب مما ترك الوالدان والأقربون مما قل منه أو كثر نصيبا مفروضا صدق الله العظيم.
For men, there is a share in what their parents and close relatives leave, and for women, there is a share in what their parents and close relatives leave. Whether it is little or much, these are an obligatory share. This is Nisa, chapter 4, verse 7. Again, before Islam, women were seen sometimes as part of the inheritance, or at best case scenario, she did not inherit, nor did daughters. And so this verse was revealed, and it was like, no. Women get their inheritance, men get their inheritance. Whether it's a lot or a little, it doesn't matter. They each get their share, and this is something that is obligatory. And again, it's prohibited to change the ordained shares or use the will as a means of causing harm or suppression. There was a Sahabi that died in the Battle of Uhud, and his brother took his entire estate. He took everything. The wife went and was like, Ya Rasulullah, right? So women, like, when this happened to her, when she was oppressed, she didn't just sit and take it. She didn't just have patience. And the men didn't tell her to have patience. She went, she was like, Ya Rasulullah, My husband died, his brother took everything. What do I do now? And so I was like, I don't have anything. Like, there's no verses on this. I don't have any knowledge on this. And so this verse was revealed, saying that women have a share, men have a share.
Yeah.
There are many ahadith. It is the duty of a Muslim who has anything to bequest to not let 2 nights pass without writing a will about it. The one that, for me, always shakes me is a man may do good deeds for 70 years. Abu Hurairah narrates it as 60 years, but it means a lifetime. But if he acts unjustly when he leaves his last testament, the wickedness of his deed will be sealed upon him, and he will enter the fire. May Allah protect us all. If, on the other hand, a man acts wickedly for 70 years or 60 years, but is just in his last will and testament, the goodness of his deed will be sealed upon him, and he will enter the garden. May Allah make us above all of those.
Amen.
That is the importance of having this, right? If you do this, if you do this properly, and you do this knowing that Allah is a Razzaq, and Allah has decreed these rules and these regulations, Allah is promising you, like, you're going to enter the garden. Right? What more can we want? So you have to have a will, you have to be truthful and fair at leaving your estate towards your parents and your family, and leaving here in America with our intestacy laws, which are the laws that happen if you do not have a will. The state of Texas has a plan for you, or whatever state you live in has a plan for what happens to your assets, and it is not according to Sharia, right? And so it becomes fard, or an obligation on Muslims, to have a written will. And this is if you have anything, if you have a bank account with $100 in it, if you have a car, if you have a plane, if you have anything that you own yourself, you have to have written something out saying, this is what happens if I die. Ilm al-Fara'id is, again, the subject of the injunctions concerning inheritance. It involves knowing the rules for dividing the inheritance and distributing it so that each person receives his or her proper shares. So who inherits? Spouse will always inherit. Parents will always inherit. Children will always inherit. If you have all of those people, nobody else inherits. If parent has passed away, a grandparent can step in the shoes of the parent. If one of your children has passed away, your grandchildren can step in the shoes of your child. If you don't have any of those people, that's when siblings can inherit. That's when their children may inherit. And then if none of those, that's when you get into maternal aunts and uncles or paternal aunts and uncles. So the default is always going to be spouse, parents, children. That is, for most families, that's it. If you don't have them, that's when you keep working outwards. And who does not inherit? Non-Muslims do not inherit. An apostate, someone who leaves Islam, does not inherit. Someone who kills, either directly or indirectly, someone who he inherits from. Or people who die simultaneously, like a family in a car accident, and there's no way to determine who dies first. For some of these people, you can leave them something in your wasiyah or your bequest. A lot of times people will say wasiyah is your will. Wasiyah is a portion of your will, that is the bequest portion, where you have flexibility in where you give and who you give. There's different types of shares, right? There's people that receive fixed shares, like in the Quranic ayahs that say, 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 1/3, 1/6. There's people that receive whatever is remainder, right? So that's most of your male relatives, excluding the husband and the maternal half-brother. And there's people that receive both, right? So the father could receive 1/6, and then he can receive whatever's left, and the grandfather as well. So, question I always ask, this is always my question. How many ayahs in the Quran? So when we talk about the verses on inheritance, this is the one area where Allah legislates in extreme detail who gets what. When you look at Salah, Allah tells you, Aqim as-Salah. Sometimes He'll say in the morning and in the evenings, or both mornings and both evenings, and in the middle of the day. When we talk about zakat, it gives zakat, and it gives out 7 categories. This is the one area where you have minute detail to the percentages of who inherits. So how many verses in the Quran talk about inheritance law? Talk about the actual splitting of who gets what. Throw out a number.
11, 12.
11, 12, okay. I heard 4. Less.
176.
176, verse 176, yes, and there's two other verses. What verses? 11 and 12. There's three verses. 11 and 12 came first, and that was it. And the Sahaba were like, this doesn't make sense, Ya Rasulullah, give us more. And then 176 came. Understand?
No. Subhanallah, this ayat, three ayat in Surah An-Nisa, and then the last ayat in Surah An-Nisa, they came with the details of Al-Mirath. Who will take, how much they take. And that's why we call it Ilm al-Faraid, science of Faraid, because Allah make it fard. And no one have the right to change those Faraid, or those shares. It's not fair that the daughter take one and the boy took two. Why? And then ask why. Yes, you can ask the question why. Allah make it there. But logically, when I have a son and a daughter, okay, when my son get married, he had to give the mahr and make the walima.
Read the verses.
نعم. I say that.
Then we'll explain.
قال تعالى يوصيكم الله في أولادكم للذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين فإن كن نساء فوق 2 فلهن ثلثا ما ترك وإن كانت واحدة فلها النصف. Next time.
So, son receives double what the daughters receive. If you only have one daughter, she receives 1/2 of the estate. 2 or more daughters share in 2/3. Why does the daughter receive half of her brother's share?
In Sharia, the son, the male son, is the one who takes care of his family. He takes care of his wife, his children, his parents, his sisters. If they're not married, he is in charge of that, take care of them. While the daughter, when she gets married, the mahr for her. If she's working, yes, her income for her, unless they make agreement between them. So this is why the Sharia came, put 2 share for the boy and 1 share for the daughter.
So again, the woman doesn't have the expense of jihad, the expense of maintaining her family, the expense of having to pay flood money, right? Sharia is not aimed at elevating one gender over the other, but it's to create a stable and balanced society. So yes, I get half of my brother's inheritance, but I have no obligation to spend on me. I have no obligation to spend on my kids. I have 0 obligations. If I do that, that is sadaqah. If I want to, I can give the zakat on spending on my family. Like, the husband does not have that obligation, does not have that right. It is fard upon him to spend upon the family, including the sister, if she's not married.
Same ayah. ولأبويه لكل واحد منهما السدس مما ترك إن كان له ولد فإن لم يكن له ولد وورثه أبواه فلأمه الثلث فإن كان له إخوة فلأمه السدس من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين.
So each parent is entitled to 1/6 if you leave offspring. So mom and dad get the same amount. If there's kids, mom and dad receive equal amounts. There's no difference there. But if you are childless and your parents are your only heirs, then your mother will receive 1/3. But if you leave siblings, then your mother will only receive 1/6 after the fulfillment of the bequest and debts. So if the deceased left children, mom and dad get equal 1/6, 1/6. If the deceased has no children, mom gets 1/3, and the verse is silent, meaning dad gets whatever is left over. If the deceased has brothers and sisters, mom gets 1/6, and dad gets the rest. The siblings do not inherit, again, because the siblings will inherit once the parents pass.
آباؤكم وأبناؤكم لا تدرون أيهم أقرب لكم نفعا فريضة من الله إن الله كان عليما حكيما.
Be fair to your parents and children, as you do not fully know who is more beneficial to you. This is an obligation from God. Surely God is all-knowing, all-wise. So again, we might want to favor one child over the other.
JazakAllah Khairan.
More for me, right? But what we don't know is that. Okay. What we don't know is which child is going to be the one that is going to be the one that's going to be dog for you, or the one that's going to be the one that's going to all their good deeds come to an end except for 3: in ongoing charity, beneficial knowledge, and a righteous child who prays for them. Yes?
Last verse where you said that 1/3 goes to parent if there are no children. 1/3 goes to parent.
No, it's 1/3 to mom, and it's silent to the rest, meaning dad gets the rest of the 2/3. Yes. And then verse 12 is the next ayah, which talks about spouses.
ولكم نصف ما ترك أزواجكم إن لم يكن لهن ولد فإن كان لهن ولد فلكم الربع مما تركن من بعد وصية يوصين بها أو دين ولهن الربع مما تركتم إن لم يكن لكم ولد فإن كان لكم ولد فلهن الثمن مما تركتم من بعد وصية توصون بها أو دين.
You will inherit half of what your wives leave if they are childless, but if they have children, then your share is 1/4 of the estate after the fulfillment of bequests and debts. And your wives will inherit 1/4 of what you leave if you are childless, but if you have children, then your wives will receive 1/8 of your estate after the fulfillment of bequests and debts. So the husband receives 1/2 of the wife's estate if she has no children, 1/4 if she has children. Wife receives 1/4 of his estate if he has no children, and 1/8 if he does have children. And if there's co-wives, they would share in that 1/4 or that 1/8.
وإن كان رجل يورث كلالة أو امرأة وله أخ أو أخت فلكل واحد منهما السدس فإن كانوا أكثر من ذلك فهم شركاء في الثلث من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين غير مضار وصية من الله والله عليم حليم.
This is talking about someone who is kalala. If a man or woman leaves neither parents nor children, so no ascendants or descendants, but only brothers or sisters from their mother's side, they will each inherit 1/6. So again, even male and female each receive 1/6, equal shares. But if there are more than one, they all will share 1/3 of the estate after the fulfillment of the bequests and debts without harm to the heirs. This is a commandment from God, and God is all-knowing, most forbearing. Again, kalala means no ascendants, no parents, and no descendants, no children. But has brothers and sisters on the mother's side, they each receive 1/6. If there's 2 siblings, if they are more than that, then they all share in 1/3.
تلك حدود الله ومن يطع الله ورسوله يدخله جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها وذلك الفوز العظيم ومن يعص الله ورسوله ويتعد حدوده يدخله نارا خالدا فيها وله عذاب مهين.
These entitlements are the limits set by God. Whoever obeys God and His Messenger will be admitted into gardens under which rivers flow to stay there forever. This is the ultimate triumph. But whoever disobeys God and His Messenger will be cast into hell to stay there forever, and they will suffer a humiliating punishment. So those were the verses that were revealed. You only had 11 and 12 that were revealed, and then these verses that came afterwards being like, these are the limits. This is what Allah has decided. The Sahaba were like, this doesn't make any sense, especially the kalala. Like, if you have no ascendants, you have no descendants, how does that, like, that math doesn't work out? What do we do? And so they kept asking the Rasulullah for a fatwa. They're like, tell us what happens. Tell us what, like Abu Bakr and Umar kept asking about kalala and what they inherit. So the last verse was revealed, verse 176, to give clarity to that person who does not have parents or grandparents or children or grandchildren.
يستفتونك قل الله يفتيكم في الكلالة إن امرؤ هلك ليس له ولد وله أخت فلها نصف ما ترك وهو يرثها إن لم يكن لها ولد فإن كانت 2 فلهما الثلثان مما ترك وإن كانوا إخوة رجالا ونساء فللذكر مثل حظ الأنثيين يبين الله لكم أن تضلوا والله بكل شيء عليم.
So Allah reveals this by saying, they ask you for a ruling, O Prophet. Say God gives you a ruling regarding those who die without children or parents. If a man dies childless and leaves behind his sister, she will inherit one half of his estate, whereas her brother will inherit all of her estate if she dies childless. If this person leaves behind two sisters, they together will inherit 2/3 of the estate. But if the deceased leaves male and female siblings, the male share will be equal to that of two females. God makes this clear to you so you do not go astray, and God has perfect knowledge of all things. So again, this is just kalala, leaving full siblings or paternal half siblings are the only heirs. One sister receives one half, two or more sisters receive 2/3. Male and female, both brothers and sisters, the sister receives half of brother's share. This is similar to what siblings will inherit from parents. If the woman dies leaving only brothers, he inherits everything. And again, Allah closes out by saying, God makes this clear to you so you do not go astray, and God has perfect knowledge of all things. So wasiya o-day, right? It's mentioned 4 times in verses 11 and 12. After any bequest he may have made or debt. And the scholars say that the wasiya is mentioned first to stress its importance with the law, even though debts have to be paid first. There was a Sahabi who passed away, and on his deathbed he freed 6 slaves, and that was his entire estate. What do you think happened? Is that fair, or is that what should have happened? What do you think? If I'm on my deathbed and I give everything away, I'm like, I see it no. I see some sisters are like, no. Why? What? Your inheritors have rights. Your inheritors have rights. The wife came to the Prophet complaining. The man distributed all of his wealth on his deathbed. What happens? Prophet put them into 3 groups. Freed 2 of the slaves, 1/3 of the estate, and the other 2/3 was for the family. Right? So our inheritance is up to 1/3 of your estate you can leave as charity, or to those who are not provided for as heirs under Islamic law, a non-Muslim wife or non-Muslim parents, any adopted children, special needs children with permission of the other inheritors, or anyone else for good. Inheritance is a means that Allah has given for supporting one's nearest family, and you should not rob them of this opportunity or cause them to fall into poverty. There's a hadith where a Sahabi had 1 daughter, and he was like, Ya Rasulullah, I only have 1 daughter. Can I donate everything? I was like, no. He's like, what about half? He's like, no. What about 1/3? He's like, a third is kathir. 1/3 and 1/3 is a lot. Right? So that is our limit, is that you may donate up to 1/3 on your deathbed. While you're alive and well, give whatever you want to. You want to give everything, you can give everything. There's no limits there. But if you're on your deathbed and you are planning in your will, your limit is
1/3. This 1/3 is a gift from Allah to us. A gift from Allah to us. That you put something that should be for yourself. That 1/3 is for you and for your akhirah. So Mayars, they have 2/3. So it's fair. Although Rasul said that وَالثُّلُث كَثِير. So you can make 20%, maybe 15% as a waqf. What is waqf? Waqf literally is something to stop something or to hold it. And to hold it for a public interest. Or even for your family. The first waqf was done by Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He said, Ya Rasulullah, inni hustu hadhihi al-ard. Laysa li khayru minha, min khaybar. فماذا تأمرني بها? I want to make it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the ayah. لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. You never attain righteousness until you spend from that which you love. So Umar said this, with the most property I love. He said, leave the دع الأصول
وأبق ثمرها لأقربائك الفقراء. Make the land, the trees should never be sold, but the fruit should be for your poor relatives. And that's the first waqf, which is صدقة جارية, which is now endowment. And every university here have endowments with millions or billions. You donate for that. And you say, this is for research, this is for students, this is for that. You decide what you want that waqf for. So the waqf can be a school, can be a hospital, can be a clinic, can be a well, can be a madrasa. And most of these madaris was established by Muslims. Hospitals, schools, pharmacies. That was part of the awqaf in Cairo, in Damascus, in Istanbul, in Karachi. Every Islamic state, they have this awqaf. And there is minister who run these things. It used to be another awqaf. That means I appoint who should be the one who run this waqf. That's in traditionally. And that's where the trust came. So you decide who will run my waqf, for what reason. And that be sadaqah jari for me, which is from my inheritance, 1/3 or less than that.
And again, while you're alive, you can do what you want to, including for endowments, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So what happens when you die? So again, under Islamic law and under Texas law. Under Islamic law, anything that's borrowed gets returned to its rightful owners. Any burial expenses, final medical expenses come out of the estate. Any debts to people are paid. So if I owe anyone money, that needs to come out first. And then if I have debts to Allah, if I have not done a hajj and I was able to, I have kafara from days I didn't fast, I didn't make them up. I have zakah that did not pay. Hanafi and Maliki say that you can pay this if it's written in the wasi and only up to 1/3. Shafi'i says you can pay it all. And then your wasiyah, the rest of the 1/3. And then after that, you distribute whatever assets are left according to Sharia. So parents receive 1/6, 1/6. Spouse receives 1/8, 1/4, and the rest gets divided among children if there's children in the shares that we talked about. What about under Texas law? Under Texas law, probate is what happens. Probate is a legal process where a court determines, A, if there's a will, if that will is valid, and then it distributes that person's property according to the will, if they've got the will. If they don't have a will, it's according to whatever the state of Texas plan is that we'll talk about. The goal is to appoint an executor, find any creditors, pay any debts, pay any income and estate taxes, and then distribute the assets. The assets will still go to your heirs, they just will not go in the Sharia portions. So some things to consider, right? For making a will, that is non-negotiable. Anyone who has anything, even if it's just a bank account in your own name, you need a will. Consider a trust. If you have minor children, if you have specifics, a trust might be a better way to go. Making a healthcare directive or a financial power of attorney. Those are, if I can't make decisions, allow me to appoint who I want to make financial decisions for me, who I want to make medical decisions. All of you college kids, when you turn 18, according to the law, you are adults. And so you also need to have these documents written so that if God forbid something happens to you, your parents are still able to step in and help and make decisions and do whatever they need to help and support you. Because without these, doctors may or may not, financial institutions definitely will not allow your parents to have access or to do anything. Protecting your children and their property, consider life insurance. Understanding tax consequences, that's not an issue in Texas anymore. Covering any funeral expenses, final arrangements, and then long-term care. So a lot of people call, they're like, I don't have any assets. Do I really need to do anything? I only have my house, and I only have, my bank account and a car. Do I really need to do anything? The answer is yes, because if you don't do anything, the state of Texas has a plan, and that plan is long and it's expensive. It is more than what you would pay to do a will or even a trust. This is what the probate process looks like. It is a minimum of 8 months, as long as 2 to 3 year process, in order to get assets from your name into the name of your families. And again, the reason for this process is that it is to notify creditors. It is to make sure that if you owe anybody money, that they get their money from you. And not like personal loan, this is like credit cards or house or your mortgage or, the people that the big corporations that have that have the strength to sort of set up processes. And again, their goal is to, and because this is a one-size-fits-all process, it is very public, so anything that you have goes through the court system. Everything is there, so you can go look up someone's will, you can look up what they left or what their assets were. It's all available online because it's, again, like I said, it's a public process, and those documents are all there. So again, some of the consequences: if you don't have a will, the government will appoint an executor of your estate who will divide your assets according to Texas law. The payment for that executor will come out of your estate. Your heirs will get more or less than they are owed, or than they're entitled to under Sharia. So it's time-consuming, it's expensive, and there is no privacy in that process. More importantly, if you do not have any of these documents set up, or especially guardianship documents for your children, the judge will have the final decision on who raises your children, because you have not taken the time to write out, I have minor children, upon my death, this is who I want to take care of them. If they're not available, then this person. If they're not available, then this person. The judge will also appoint a conservator, or someone to manage the money for your children. And if it is not someone who has the same financial mindset as you, they might be investing it in money that's not halal, right? They might be investing it in the S&P 500 instead of investing it in the MENA or something like that. They might not be paying zakah on it. They might not be doing these things that are basic, but that are also an essential part of our deen. And so when we write out who we want to take care of this, we are ensuring that our children are taken care of, and that the judge will appoint who we want, and not just any random person. One of the inadvertent side effects is feeding the Texas Department of Unclaimed Property. So if your family doesn't know what you own, or where your assets are, where your bank accounts are, where your retirement accounts, where your life insurance is, they're not going to come and try and find you and be like, oh, hey, your dad left money here. The bank is just going to hold on to the money for a number of years, and then they're going to send it to the Texas Department of Unclaimed Property. And that department has over $6 billion, and every state has its own. So just in the state of Texas, there is $6 billion of money that is unclaimed that goes there. Even like for me, when I looked up myself, I found a couple $100 from an apartment that I left in my security deposit. They couldn't find me, so they just sent it to the Missouri Department of Unclaimed Property, and it just sat there for over a decade. Until I found it, and I went and I claimed my money. And so again, the goal is to keep these dollars for you and your families, but that means that someone needs to know where these assets are. So creating a detailed spreadsheet of all of your assets, making sure that your family knows where this spreadsheet lives, or that it's printed out, or wherever it is essential to make sure that, again, our money does not get lost. When you're looking at Texas property, again, we talked about probate here. So what happens if you don't have a will? Probate. And probate has, there are laws as far as who receives what. So if you have, so before we go into what the details of Texas law is, Texas is a community property state. What does that mean? That means that anything that we own, if you are married, anything that you have earned during the marriage is owned by the community, by both of you, and it is liable to be split 50-50. Separate property is anything that I owned before marriage, or anything I received as a gift or I received as inheritance, as long as I kept that separate. So let's say I received inheritance from my parents, and then I put it in my joint bank account with my spouse. Potentially that could still be separate, but it's a little bit more difficult. But if I received that inheritance and I put it in my own separate bank account in my own name, that stays my own separate property. And again, that is equal. Sharia is the same way, right? If I receive it as inheritance, it is my own separate. It is not a part of the estate. So if you are a single person and you have no children, your parents receive it equally. If only one of your parents is alive and you have no siblings, then that parent receives everything. If you have siblings, then the parent receives half and the siblings receive half. If you have children, it only goes to your children, with your grandchildren sharing whatever their deceased parents share. If you're married with kids, if you're married, then your surviving spouse will inherit everything that is community. Everything that was earned during the marriage will be inherited by the spouse, as long as the children are the children of that marriage. Otherwise, 1/2 of the community estate goes to your children, and 1/2 goes to the spouse. If you do not have children, then the spouse will receive everything. If you've got separate property, then you're survived by a spouse and children, your surviving spouse is entitled to receive 1/3 of your separate personal property, and a life estate, meaning the ability to stay in your house and 1/3 of your house for the rest of their life. So what does that look like? Here's a simple example. You've got a deceased person, you've got a spouse, you've got kid 1, kid 2. So under Texas law, what happens? And under Islamic law, what happens? So under Texas law, since all the kids are the kids from the same marriage and there's a surviving spouse, they receive 100% of the community property, anything earned during the marriage. That surviving spouse also receives 1/3 of any separate property, and that life estate of 1/3 of your real property, and the rest of that separate property goes to your children. But under Sharia, what happens? Who inherits and what do they get? I should have warned you guys, there's your pop quiz. There's your pop quiz. Who inherits? Okay, spouse gets 1/8. What if it's the husband? That's only the wife. 1/4. Good. Husband gets 1/4 of wife's estate since there are children. Wife gets 1/8 because there are kids. What do the kids get? 2-1 if it's a boy or girl. What if they're both boys? They share 50-50. What if it's 2 girls? They share in 2/3. They get 1/3 each. Excellent. So 2 boys receive equal shares, 2 girls receive 1/3 each. Girl and the boy, she receives 1/3 and he receives 2/3. Same example, but now you got parents too. Does it change anything under Texas law? No. Same thing. Kids are in the same marriage, spouse inherits everything, and they get 1/3 of the life estate. What about under Islamic law? Does it change anything? Yes. Okay, what does it change? Parents get 1/6. Exactly. So again, husband gets 1/4, wife gets 1/8, mom and dad receive 1/6, equal shares, and then the kids receive, again, everyone just receives basically a smaller share. So to create a valid will in Texas, you have to have any person of sound mind who's at least 18 years old. It has to be in writing, it has to be signed by the testator or at their direction. So if I can't write, I can say, Lubabah, sign this for me, or I can sign an X and I've got like witnesses. It has to be attested to or witnessed by 2 competent witnesses or at least 14 years of age who signed the will in the presence of the testator, which is just hilarious because you've got to be 18 to write the will, but you can witness it at the age of 14. But we're in Texas, you got to have some idiosyncrasies here. You cannot strike out portions of the will. So let's say I've given my friend an amount, or I've given the visitor an amount, and now I'm mad at them. So I'm like, I don't want to give them, so I want to go scratch it out. You can't scratch it out, it's not going to be valid. You have to re-execute it. A handwritten will is valid. A holographic will is valid. So if you don't have anything right now, go home, write out, my name is Lubabah Abdullah. I'm an unmarried woman. I have 2 children, Yusuf and Aya. This is my will. This is who I want to be the guardian. That's the most important part. This is who I want to be the guardian. If something happens to me, I want my parents to take care of my children. If my parents are not available, I want my sister. My sister's not available, I want my other sister. Right? So write out who you want for the guardian. And the second thing is I want my assets to be divided according to Islamic law. If you know what the shares are, I would not write Islamic law and I would just write the shares. My spouse gets 1/4. My kids get, 2-1 or 50-50 or 1/3, whatever it is. Or my parents receive 1/6, right? So just hand write that will, sign it and date it, and that is a valid will in the state of Texas. And that is, until you do something else, that is at least your bare minimum, your fund has been taken care of. So if you don't have something, go home, literally just handwrite it, and you're good for now. If you create a valid will, you'll have the power to give according to Islamic law and Texas law. Again, if you don't, then it falls to the rules of intestacy, which is dying without a legal will. Again, follows the laws of Texas. Someone will have to go to court to get guardianship over your minor children or any adult disabled children, and you will have no say in that. That is the scariest part. You'll have no say in who takes care of your children, who manages the money for them, and when your children receive the money. So what is a trust? A trust is a legal entity that holds assets for many reasons. It's designed to ensure that your assets are managed or distributed to the beneficiaries in accordance to the terms of your instrument. So there's 3 different parties involved. There's the grantor or the trustor or the seller. That is the person who's creating the trust. There's a trustee, the person who is managing or controlling the assets of the trust. It can be multiple people, like you can have co-trustees as husband and wife. And then you've got the beneficiary, the person or the entities who benefit from the assets in the trust. Again, there can be multiple. I can also be all three. So I am the grantor of my revocable living trust. I am the trustee, meaning I manage the money that's in there. I can take anything out, I can put more money in. And I am a beneficiary. I can use it for my benefit. Upon my death, it becomes an irrevocable trust, and it is only to be managed for my heirs, like my parents who receive their 1616, and the rest of it is going to be held in trust for my children, and it will be given to them at the ages that I have already predefined. Again, some of the goals of a trust is to avoid the hassle and the expense of probate. Again, that long court process, you avoid it by creating a trust. Because once you've created your trust and you've funded your trust, meaning you put your assets in the trust. So instead of owning a bank account in my name, I own the bank account in the name of my trust. Or I put my trust as the beneficiary of my bank account, the beneficiary of my life insurance, the beneficiary of my 401k, the beneficiary of my car, the beneficiary of my business. I put my house in, instead of being titled under Lubabah Abdullah, an individual, it is now in the Lubabah Abdullah Revocable Living Trust. Right? Once I put all of my assets in there, all I need is a death certificate to get access to all of those assets. I don't have to go to court. It bypasses that whole process. It saves you time and it saves you money. So again, this is sort of like an infographic of it, right? You have all of your assets, you've created your trust, you've written out what you want and when you want and everything to be held for your beneficiaries, and then you just put all of your assets in there. Is there a question?
If you wanted to include it in the name of our children as a beneficiary for everything, like the 401k, the bank account, cars, car titles, we still need to have the trust?
Depends on how old your children are, depends on how responsible they are. If your kids are under the age of 18, then 100% you still need a trust, because minors cannot inherit, and so you will still have to go through court, and they will hold the money until your kids turn 18, and then at 18 they will give your kids a blank check. Right? And the question is your child going to be responsible at the age of 18 to get a blank check for all of that amount, and are they going to use it in a wise manner? If they are, then alhamdulillah. If they're not, then you set up a trust where you can put limitations. Right? So my kids receive income at 21. They receive 1/3 at 25, they receive 1/3 at 30, and then they become the trustee at 35, and they can do whatever they want to. Before that, it is still their inheritance, but they have to go talk to their khala. They have to go talk to whoever I've appointed as the trustee to make sure that the assets are being managed, to make sure that the mortgage is being paid, or the mortgage has been paid off, that the insurance is paid, that the taxes are paid, to make sure that zakat is being paid on a yearly basis, to make sure that if, like, my son wants a car, are you responsible? Are you doing what you need to do? Are you getting your classes? Do you need a car if you want a car? Okay, fine, you need a car. He comes back and says, like, I want a $50,000 car. Trustee laughs at him and is like, there's a nice $5,000, $10,000 Peter. You drive for the next decade, and then you go buy yourself your $50,000 car after you're done. Right? So you can put those limitations in so that they're using that inheritance for the big picture things. You want to pay for medical school? Let's go. Here we go. Here's a check. Right? You want to pay for, you want to get married? Okay, great. You want to get a down payment on a house? 100%. You want to start a business? Where's your business plan? Okay, you got a business plan? It looks good, looks solid? Okay, yellow, let's go. But if not, sorry, no. Right? Because I want to make sure that if I am not here, that there are people there to help, support, and guide the same way I would have been there. And so a trust will allow you to do that. It allows you, I've got clients who have, like, their parents living in their homes. Like, they've got rental properties and their parents live in homes. So in their trust, they've written out, my parents stay in the home for not paying anything for the rest of their lives. No questions asked. So you as child, this is your home, right? You're going to own this, but you can't do anything until your grandparents have passed away. Until that time, your grandparents stay in the house and continue paying the taxes, paying all the bills. Daughters, right? I want my daughter to have a life estate in the house. or I want to give to my daughter this house so that she always has a place to live. Right? These are things that you can do in a trust that you might not be able to do in just a will. Yes? Do you have a question? Yes, well, you're not putting limitations on when they receive it, because it's their inheritance from the day I die. But when do they actually get full, unfettered control? Yes, you get the limitations, and you have to. In the Quran, there's a verse that says that to sufaha amwalakum. Do not give the immature person the safi. What is safi? Huh? I know. What is safi? What's the actual translation of the word? I can't think of it.
حتى يبلغ الرشد.
I know. What is safi? Safi.
Safi is the one who are wasteful.
Someone who's wasteful.
Yes.
Do not give them money. My 18-year-old is wasteful. It's not my 18-year-old. Any 18-year-old, for the most part, tends to be wasteful. Sorry, my son isn't here.
I'm sorry, I had the same question she has, because it just makes me think, like, it's like if one person does their part, like what the other person does, that's their accountability, right? So, like, let's say if I say you can't get this money to your 35, what if they die at 34 and they didn't get it?
Well, they can get it, but they have to go talk to an adult. They can get it. Like, sometimes the kids might have used it all by the time they're 25 because there's not a lot of money and they wanted to pay for college, they wanted to pay for, what they needed to. But they actually have to go talk to an adult to be like, is this a wise decision? Is this something that you should be doing? Or is this something that, let's think through this more.
I don't know, like, because I hear so many stories of, like, the wealth not being distributed because, like, okay, we have this land, but nobody wants to sell, and so it just keeps going and going, and, like, I don't know, nobody's getting their right.
And that is definitely a problem as far as nobody getting their right. That's different because a lot of times, especially you've got, like, a lot of times sisters, especially, like, if, like, parents pass away and there's land, especially overseas, where they're like, whatever, and you don't need it. That happens all the time. And again, against everything Islam came and stood for. This is just encouraging them to be responsible. And just talking to an adult, it's like, I'm not there. I need them to go talk to an adult. Yes?
So is it more of a matter of not age, but how the money is being used? Is it more so like control over how the money is being used responsibly? It's not about age at all? Well, not at all.
Well, age is just a really easy demarcation. Right? It's easy to say, 20, 25, 30. And again, some people are like, no, let's give it to them at 20 and 25, or 22 and 27. And you know your kid's best. And you can change these numbers. You can always change these numbers. Daughter's like, yeah, Mama, let's go now. Right? And so it's possible. And again, you have that flexibility. I'm just saying what I did because, again, that's just what my default was. It might change.
And so you can set this cast up. Each kid has a different thing.
You can set it up so each kid has a different thing. I wouldn't recommend it because then, like, why did Mama let you get your money at 20? I mean, not until I'm 30. That's so discrimination.
And then, obviously, because can you set up the kids at a range of ages?
So money is distributed the day up. So, like, let's say I have 100K. My parents would get 1616. The rest is divided 2 to 1. So let's say there's 100K after my parents received it. So my son would get 66,000, my daughter would get 33,000, and my trustee would manage it in like an Excel sheet. Basically, 66,000 for Yusuf, 33,000 for Ayat, and then they would just, whenever Yusuf came to ask for money, they would take it out and make a notation on an Excel sheet saying he's taken this much or she's taken this much. I'm paying for Islamic school for him or her, or I'm paying for this, or I'm paying for a car, or I'm paying for tuition. So they would have to just record it I've invested it and it's grown by 10%. Okay, here we go. And every year they have to give an accounting. So the kids know and their guardians know what's in there and sort of what's being spent. So there's accountability as well.
What's the average cost of creating a trust?
It depends. Usually anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 for most families. Again, if you're hiring, if you only have a will and you go through probate, you're looking at, $5,000 to $10,000. So you've got to compare it to that, and then this you're able to set it up in a way that is beneficial for you, for your children, with the details that you know.
This is a thing called transfer and debt deed.
Yes. It depends. If your kids are all adults, right, above the age of 18, I would even probably recommend even older. If your kids all work well together and that you trust that they're going to be able to get along. Because the problem is when money comes into play, people change. People change. And we've seen families that have broken over this. And so if you are 100% confident that your kids are going to do what you need them to do, then yes, a transfer on death deed. For a lot of times with my older clients who are in their 60s, 70s, whose kids are in their 30s and 40s, a lot of times I won't recommend a trust. I will recommend a will with the transfer on death deed, with beneficiary designations, with the caveat that, again, the kids all get along well together. That the kids will, let's say if I've received $100K and my parents have said that they wanted to donate 20%, that I'm going to take $20K out of the $100K and donate it the way my parents have said they will. Right? And so if I have that trust that my kids will do that, then yes, you can definitely do that. If not, then the trust is definitely going to be a better option. It's more... It's about half the price. The will package is about $2,000. Trust packages start around $4,000 for spouses. That goes along with the will package, the transfer on death deed.
Do we need a witness signature for handwritten?
Do you need what?
A signature of witness?
No.
Or
If it's 100% handwritten in your own handwriting, no witnesses are needed. Just you signing and dating it is fine.
You mentioned life insurance.
We'll go to that in just a few more slides. So benefits of a trust, again, wills go through probate, which is a public court hearing, which takes time, which takes money. In Texas, you actually have to hire an attorney to go through probate. And a trust, you can ensure that parents and grandparents are supported, that the wife and daughters are supported, and it's often a tool to avoid taxes. Taxes used to be a big issue. They're not in Texas. We don't have estate taxes in Texas, and the federal limit is now $13.99 million, and that has been solidified in the One Big Beautiful Bill, so it's not usually an issue for anyone. Again, if you're incapacitated, you're unable to handle your personal financial affairs, you can set up who's going to pay your mortgage, who's going to pay your rent, who's going to have access to your bank accounts, what decisions are people going to make. Right, so you want to have someone appointed to make financial decisions for you, you want someone appointed to make medical decisions for you, and you want a healthcare directive, which is if I have a terminal illness, allows me to appoint who I want to make decisions. So again, designating a guardian for any minor children, like who do you want to control any of their money, who do you want to raise them, super important. Designated a guardian if I'm incapacitated. Something happens to me, the doctors are like, you need a guardian. I can write out who I want and who I don't want. The durable power of attorney, that financial power of attorney, allows you to choose who can pay your bills, access your bank account, talk to your insurance company, your employer, sell your car, buy your property, sell property. Medical power of attorney, again, who makes those medical decisions for you, and a living will, which tells them how to proceed if I have a terminal or an irreversible condition. Non-probate transfers, which we've been talking about, which is that joint ownership with right of survivorship or tenancy by the entirety. Again, you can have that on bank accounts, houses, cars, life insurance, IRA, employee benefits, payable on death or transfer on death, promissory notes. These are all things that all pass outside of probate if you have taken the steps. So if you've made sure that my bank account has a beneficiary designation on it, which you can for any bank account. You can have a beneficiary designation, meaning if I pass away, it goes automatically to my spouse if my spouse is in an account, or to my children, or to my trust. Same thing for all of the rest of our houses. So this is one of the things that we'll talk about in detail, is how do we make sure that all of these are set up. Apparently I took out the slide on life insurance, but I've got 10 minutes left. So I only have 3 slides left. We're close with that. But life insurance. So life insurance, there's a lot of different opinions. Right? There's some opinions that are like haram on all cases. There are some that are like it is okay in certain circumstances. Like Amja had a paper. It was a 78-page paper, and at the very end, what he said was that the default is no, and there are circumstances where it is allowed. So, for example, the example that he put in was if you're a single mom, where that might make sense for you. So I have life insurance, but I'm also a single mom of 2 kids who are in high school and middle school. So it makes sense for me to have life insurance for a certain number of years, make sure that, if God forbid something happens to me, my house is paid off, they've got college, paid for them if they need it, etc. There are some scholars that will say, like Sheikh Radford takes the opinion that if you're getting it as a perk of work, that is fine. Even if you have to pay a small amount to get a larger amount. So let's say I gotta pay $50 a month and I can go from, 100,000 to $500,000. He's like, that is fine. And so there are different opinions. But again, that's where having a relationship with the Sheikh who knows you and your family, who can give you a ruling specific to your family. Again, there are also different types of life insurance, right? There's whole life, term life, there's variable income life, and some of them are a waste of money. Some of them are too expensive. Term life is probably the one that is probably the most that I would use. There are insurance companies, like I know Joe Radford actually works with an insurance company based out of Chicago that works in all 50 states. They're called Ikhlas Insurance. I actually bought my life insurance through them. He's actually reviewed their insurance contract and has okayed it for Sharia compliance. And so that's when I was buying life insurance. I just went with them because he said that it was okay. And so there are options, but again, you have to do a little bit of research. And again, for the most part, yes, it's fine. Part of work, 100%, totally fine. If it's something other than that, again, it just depends on the circumstances.
So can we convert the term insurance to the life insurance?
Say that again?
Can we convert the term insurance to life insurance?
The term is life insurance. Term is one type of life insurance. There's term life, there's whole life, and there's variable income life insurance. So term life, I know, is for the most part, depending on what they invest in, is okay. Like if it's a mutual company where it's similar to Takaful, where that's the one that Sheikh Joe says that's fine. So like if it's like a mutual company that does insurance, Sheikh Joe takes the opinion that that is okay. But again, you can do research, you can go to his website, he has a lot of articles on this and a lot of details on this as well. Do you want to add anything about insurance?
No.
No.
There is ulama say that. There's ulama say that is okay, but some ulama also they
Yeah, some ulama say no, some ulama say yes, so you got to figure out what you're comfortable with.
No.
And again, having a relationship with imams and scholars who know you, who know your family, is really important, because then you're able to get rulings that are actually legitimate for your family. Like you can't go and just talk in generalities at the scholar and be like, the Sheikh said that this is halal. It's not, right? He said it's okay for this situation. And that's why even when I do estate planning, I tell people all the time, like there's situations where I go and I'm like, okay, I need a fatwa. This is a situation, this is a family, this is who they inherit, or this is who this is, who actually should receive this. Because sometimes it's not what's written. But because of the family situation, it's not what's written. And that's okay. Joe Bradford is, yes. His website, I think, is joebradford.com. So the last thing is just on awqaf or endowments. We talked about this earlier. Again, this is a means of supporting our fellow Muslims and Muslim organizations. If we have these waqf set up, we will not be able, stop having to have fundraisers all the time, especially in Ramadan. And again, this is Sadaqah Jariyah, this is that ongoing charity, and they're above the doors to goodness. If you look at U.S. universities, they have over $839,000 billion worth of endowments. Again, $839,000 billion worth of endowments. And that's why, like, when you had all the students that were protesting for us a few years ago, a year and a half ago, this is why. That's the amount of money that's there and the amount of pressure that can come in. And so we need to have our own endowments in our masajid, in our institutions. And if you look at how historically we have used them in Islamic history, it's not just the masjid or the school or the hospital, right? Farm animals, once they were too old to work the farm, people had farms that they could just go and graze at. Students, research, a servant, if your servant broke a dish, there used to be a waqaf where they could go and take the broken dish and get a replacement, so it's not coming out of their paycheck. Right? Older people that have no families to care for them. If you look at the oldest degree granting university in the world, it was built by a Muslim woman who received inheritance from her father. She did not just sit on her inheritance, she built a Qarawiyyin university. It is the oldest degree granting, continuously degree granting university in the world, built by a Muslim woman. Right? So this is our history, this is our legacy, but we don't know that, and we have not taken advantage of that. Awqaf can be given in our wasiyah, 1/3 portion, but importantly, during our lifetime. During our lifetime, we can give and we should give to our masajid, to our institutions, to make sure, especially when you've got like an institution like this where you've got programs, where you've got like place for youth to come and play constantly, right? Places for kids to come and study. That is so beautiful. I wish we had that during college, right? It is awesome that you guys have this masjid on campus, and we have to make sure that the legacy of Muslims and Muslim students, they're the ones who are going to carry this religion forward. It's not us. We're on our way out. It's the kids that are going to be the ones that are going to push us forward and keep us going. And so we have to support them in all ways, and by giving them not just the space, but also the staffing to help and support and grow them. Good question?
Yes, so endowments, I mean, in the past, it was like Allah gave a land, right? Like, how does it work now?
You open a bank account. You write up rules. This is our endowment. This is what it's going to be used for. So, for example, my dad started our Islamic school in St. Louis in 1990. He was the principal, and then he stepped down for a while, and then, 20 years later, I joined the board of the school. And we had a piece of land that was for sale. It was a former kinder care building, a former daycare. It was across the street from our masjid. That was up for sale. And I was like, it would be so awesome if we could buy that and put like our early childhood there. And they're like, we don't have money. I'm like, we have an endowment. Because I know my dad started an endowment for the school. And they're like, no, we don't. I was like, we have a masjid one. I'm like, no, we have a school one. They had forgotten because, again, terms changed, the imams changed, the board changes. So they had just forgotten that they had two endowments. And so I went and I found the money, and there was like almost $1 million. There was like $800,000 in there. Or there was at least $500,000 in there. But we were able to take a portion of that, buy a piece of land. And so an endowment is literally just, it's sort of like a trust. It is an entity that you create, that you write out the rules for, and then you invest it in a halal manner. And then it just continues to grow. So they would invest 20% of any of their fundraising. They would just put 10%, 20% automatically into this endowment that just continued to grow with the stock market, like our retirement accounts and like our investment accounts. And it just continues to grow, and you can pull it out if there are reasons to, with approval of your board, you can pull it out. But it just sits there and continues to grow, and you just continue adding to it. Sometimes you can, like a lot of these universities, they restrict that you can't touch the principal, you can only touch the income coming in from it, unless there's like a capital campaign or some other reasoning. But that's what we should be doing for our institutions.
And this wants to start there, know who to talk to.
You can talk to me, you can talk to Amana Mutual Funds, you can talk to, you've got people. We got you guys.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
You said how much does it cost when you US board?
Yeah, so the easiest way to get started is to go ahead and just schedule a free 30-minute consultation. If you go to my website, abdullahoffice.com, you can go to the car and grab some business cards there in your trunk. I've got business cards that'll be here. You go to the website, abdullahoffice.com, and you can schedule a free consultation, and I'll chat with you for about 30 minutes getting to know you. And then I will send you a worksheet that you can fill out, and then we'll meet for an hour and a half and go through details about you, about your family, about your assets, what you own, about where you want things to go, details about your family. We'll meet for an hour and a half and talk about all of that. And then I will send you an engagement letter, a contract that says this is what we're going to do, this is what the cost is. Again, a will for a couple, for a husband and wife, starts at $2,000, and that is your will, your financial power of attorney, your medical power of attorney, your healthcare directive, burial instructions, guardianship documents written by your children, guardianship documents for yourself if you need them. So all of those documents. The trust includes all of those documents, plus your trust, whether it's revocable or irrevocable, and that starts at $4,000. It just depends on sort of what your assets look like. That might increase or decrease that cost. So if you go to the website, abdullahoffice.com, I do offer payment plans. So if you're not able to pull out, $2,000 or $4,000, right? We can do a payment plan. I'm happy to do that because for me, this is a fault kifaya. You have to have people in the community that know how to do this. And so, again, my goal is to have everyone to come up with a will or a trust if they need it. They do that.
Can you go to the previous slide?
What did you say?
The previous slide.
The previous slide? Yes. This one? Or the one before it?
No, that.
This one? Okay. Again, I don't do hourly fees. I do a flat rate fee so that you know up front this is what it's going to cost. And then go from there. There was another question over here from the brother's side. Yes?
If a trust is written in
Bilal?
other state, is it valid
Bilal.
in Texas or should we do it?
It is still valid in
وزع معاهم.
Texas,
Help
and there are, each state has its own idiosyncrasies, and so it might make sense to have an attorney here review it and make sure that it is still going to be compliant, or like there's things like the homestead exemption that many states don't have, that Texas has, that you can have.
But as a bulk, most of the trust.
The bulk of it, yes, if it's valid in that state, it's going to be valid in that state, but again, it will be according to the laws of that state and not the laws of Texas.
Another question, do you do financial planning?
I can give you some basic financial advice, financial planning advice, and I do work closely with two financial advisors, one in St. Louis who works nationwide, and one in Houston that again works nationwide, as well as the CPAs that do the taxes and the tax strategy to make sure that we are not just increasing our wealth, but also minimizing any taxes. Any other questions? Okay. Yes.
So we have a lot of people here who are international students or on visas. How does it work with them? The pause and how this works and what they need to do and what steps they need to do.
So again, it depends on if they have children or not. If they do not, if they're just a student and they're having children.
Can you repeat the question?
We have a lot of international students here, right? What happens with them, what happens with their assets, what happens to them. And so they can still leave a beneficiary designation on all of their accounts and use that non-probate transfers. If they do not have children, they're not married, then I would just do a handwritten will, which says, again, name, what I am, what I'm doing, and I want things to go for the son-in-law. And then I would make sure that my assets all pass outside of probate. So having a beneficiary designation on my bank account, having a beneficiary designation on my car, on all of my assets. They can leave everything to, like before I set up my trust, for example, I had my sister listed as my beneficiary for everything. With the understanding that she knows that if something happens to me, her job is going to be to gather everything and then divide it according to Sharia to my family. So someone who knows who their family is overseas, who's able to make sure that any assets that they have here are able to be returned to their families in the shares.
So should we help people through the process?
Yes, 100%. Schedule that free consultation. I'm happy to talk you through it. I'm happy if you have like a draft, you're looking about it, is this valid? Can I use this? Happy to do that.
السؤال هنا.
Yes.
So the conclusion, like, you recommend for people to have a trust because if they have a will, they're going to go to the probate court. It's going to cost them $5,000 to $10,000. If if they have a trust, they don't have to go to the probate court and the cost.
As long as they funded their trust and put all of their assets in their trust, yes, they avoid that probate process.
The will is not, can be some cost they account for that.
For the heirs, exactly. Usually,
what's the time? You said like about 8 months to sort things out?
8 months to 2 years. Most of my cases have taken at least a year, and those are simple cases where everyone's in agreement. The court just takes a very long time.
They come and say everybody has time.
And during that time period, everything's frozen. If they need access, they have to go to the court to get permission. So it's a difficult process.
Related to that comment about the frozen accounts and everything, I remember at one point there was a certain amount in the community that you should make sure that each spouse has an account that's not joint, so that way you don't run into this issue that you have money.
If it's joint, if something happens to me, whoever my joint owner is gets everything. So it's not a big deal. The question becomes if something happens to both spouses. If you don't have a beneficiary listed, you have to go through the court process to get access to that money. And like if you don't have money, how are you going to pay an attorney to get access to the money? Like I have a client right now who's like, I don't have any money, I have a piece of property, 2 pieces of property I inherited from my mom. I have no cash, what do I do? How do I get this? And I'm like, and most attorneys are like, whatever, come up with the money. Take out a credit card, take out a predatory loan. And I'm like, okay, we'll hold off on it until we sell the property. Like she wants to sell the property. We'll go through probate, and then whenever we sell it, you'll pay me then. Okay.
To conclude, JazakAllah Khair, Ustad Lubabah, we really appreciate it. Sheikh Muhammad Noor, Allah Yabarak Feek. Do you think you can make a small dua for us so we can conclude? JazakAllah Khair.
Thank you for coming here, and JazakAllah Khair for inviting us. May Allah bless all of you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. اللهم لك الحمد ملء السماوات ملء الأرض مما بينهما اللهم لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك اللهم لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد بعد الرضا اللهم صل على محمد في الأولين وصل على محمد في الآخرين وصل على سيدنا محمد في الملأ إلى يوم الدين اللهم صل يا الله يا كريم يا واحد يا أحد يا فرد يا صمد كما جمعتنا في هذا البيت نتلو آياتك ونتذاكر أمر ديننا أجمعنا في الآخرة على سر متقابلين نحن آباء أمهات والمسلمين أجمعين يا الله اللهم اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا واشرح صدورنا ويسر أمورنا اللهم احفظنا بما تحفظ به عبادك الصالحين احفظ أزواجنا احفظ أبنائنا احفظ بناتنا ارزقهم أزواج صالحين وزوجات صالحات يا رب العالمين اللهم يا الله accept our dua forgive our sin to us shower your mercy upon this gathering يا رب العالمين keep us in your protection يا رب العالمين إلهي Allah as we gathered here learning our deen يا Allah grant us your maghfirah bless us our parents with Jannat an-Na'im يا رب العالمين raise our children as mu'mineen صالحين قانتين يا رب العالمين and bless them with Muslim spouses who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and help them to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ومشايخنا وأساتذتنا يا Allah accept our dua help our brothers who are suffering in Palestine, Gaza, in Sudan, in Syria and everywhere يا Allah you are ibad يا Allah they need your help يا Allah and they're mu'mineen يا رب العالمين يا Allah be with them ease their suffering يا رب العالمين and bring us together as Muslimin يا رب العالمين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والحمد لله رب العالمين وجزاكم الله خيرا وبارك الله فيكم